My stepfather forced my mother to choose between me and him. She chose him, saying, "He provides for us." They threw me out, laughing. "You'll be back when you fail." Years later, they came begging for help. I coldly replied, "I don't help strangers." Their regret was clear when I closed the door. When I was 12, my mom married Rick. That was the day everything in my life flipped upside down. Before him, it was just me and her. We didn't have much, but it was calm, quiet. I could come home, do my homework, and know I'd have peace. After Rick moved in, there was no peace. Not ever. Rick acted like I was just some stray dog my mom had brought home and left on the porch. He never outright said, "I hate you," but I didn't need him to. Every glare, every little sigh, every time he forgot to set a place for me at dinner, it was loud and clear. It wasn't long before I figured out Rick's favorite hobby was making me feel small. You'd think my mom would notice. Maybe stand up for me. She didn't. Her go-to line anytime I said anything was, "Rick works hard. He provides for us." That phrase became her answer to everything. Rick worked construction. Long hours, decent money. He bought himself a new truck within 6 months of moving in. Mom called it his reward. Meanwhile, I was wearing the same shoes for 2 years straight, the soles coming apart. By the time I hit 16, it was unbearable. Rick made it his mission to tear me down. Got my first part-time job? Wow, hope that $100 paycheck makes you feel like a man. Brought home decent grades? Grades don't mean crap in the real world. Started saving up for a car? Good luck affording insurance on that fast food salary. Mom just let it happen. Every single time. I stopped talking at dinner. Stopped telling her anything. What was the point? But I still kept working. I had this plan. I was going to get out. I'd apply to colleges. Get a degree. Make something of myself. And then came the acceptance letter from Ohio State. Partial scholarship. Enough to cover a good chunk. I'd worked 2 jobs through high school and had some savings. It was finally happening. I came home that day, holding the letter like it was gold. I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd be happy for me. Rick barely looked up from the TV. "You think you're leaving? With what money?" I told him about the scholarship, about my savings. He actually laughed. "You'll burn through that in a month and come crawling back." Then my mom said it, the line that's burned into my head forever. "Rick provides for us. You should be grateful. Maybe you should stay home. Help with bills." That was it. Right there. That's when I knew. They didn't want me to succeed. They didn't want me to leave. They wanted me stuck under Rick's thumb, working some dead-end job, handing over my paycheck to help. So I packed. Took my clothes, my old laptop, whatever I could fit in 2 bags. Rick leaned in the doorway as I walked out. "You'll be back when you fail. Don't come crying to us." And my mom? She didn't even get up from the couch. I didn't go back. Not when I slept on a blow-up mattress in a roach-infested apartment. Not when I ate ramen noodles 3 times a day. Not when my car died on the side of the highway and I had to walk 5 miles in the rain. I worked. I studied. I graduated. I got hired at a logistics company and worked my way up. Turns out I was good at it. Really good. 5 years later, I started my own business with a buddy from college. We built it from the ground up. Long nights. Weekends. Missed holidays. But it paid off. By the time I was 28, I had employees, contracts, and offices in 2 cities. Guess where one of those offices was? Toledo. I didn't move back because I missed anyone. I moved back because the market was good. And honestly, part of me wanted them to see me. Just once. See that I did it. Without them. I bought a house in a quiet neighborhood. Nothing flashy. Just a solid, comfortable place that was mine. For a while, I almost forgot about them. And then they showed up. It was a random Tuesday night. I was home late, eating leftovers straight out of the container, watching some mindless TV. Knock at the door. I thought it was a package or maybe a neighbor. Nope. It was my mom and Rick. I didn't even recognize them at first. Rick looked awful. Skinny in a sickly way. His hair was thinner, and he looked like he hadn't slept in a year. Mom looked older than I remembered, like the life had been sucked out of her. For a second, I actually thought, maybe someone died. Nope. They were there, for help. My mom started talking first. "Hey, honey. We heard you were back in town. You look great." Rick wouldn't even look me in the eye. I just stood there. I didn't invite them in. I didn't say anything. Mom kept going. "We've had a rough couple of years. Rick lost his job. The house is gone. We're trying to get back on our feet. Thought maybe, you could help us out a bit." She actually had the nerve to say it like we were just some happy family that had fallen on hard times. Rick finally spoke, barely above a whisper. "Yeah, family helps family." I felt something twist in my chest when he said that. Family. They made it clear a long time ago I wasn't part of that family. All those years. Every insult. Every time they made me feel like dirt. Every time they acted like I was a burden. Every time they laughed behind my back. And now here they were. Broke. Desperate. Standing on my porch. Suddenly, I remembered the night I left. Rick's words, "You'll be back when you fail." Except, I didn't fail. They did. And here they were, proving it. I didn't smile. I didn't yell. I didn't ask them what happened. I just looked my mom in the eye and said, "I don't help strangers." Then I shut the door. No slamming. No drama. Just closed it. I stood there on the other side of that door and listened. Rick muttered something I couldn't make out. Mom said, "Let's go." They walked back to their car. I watched them drive away from the little window. And I've never heard from them since. Weeks passed after they showed up. I thought that was the end of it. I thought they'd take the hint and disappear for good. But of course, I should have known better. Rick doesn't lose. Not in his mind. It started small. One night, I came home and noticed a deep scratch down the side of my truck. Long, from the driver's door to the tailgate. Someone had keyed it good. At first, I figured it was random. Bad luck. Until it happened again a week later. Same exact spot. Same exact kind of scratch. Then my neighbor, Mark, told me he saw some skinny older guy hanging around my driveway late at night. Didn't take much to figure out who that was. I didn't bother calling the police. What was I going to say? Hey, my stepdad, who I haven't spoken to in years, might have keyed my truck? Yeah, that'll go far. So, I let it slide. Next, I started getting weird phone calls. Blocked numbers. I'd answer. And whoever it was would hang up. Or, worse, just breathe into the phone. Slow. Loud. Like they wanted me to know they were there. Still, no proof. Just a gut feeling. Then one night, real late, someone banged on my front door. Not knocked. Banged. Hard enough to rattle the glass. When I opened it, no one was there. But sitting on my porch was an envelope. Inside were copies of my company's filings. Business registration papers, financial reports. Stuff you have to dig for, but nothing illegal. Just a reminder. A warning. Like, hey, we know what you've got now. I checked the security cameras. Of course, they were disabled. Someone had cut the wires. That night I didn't sleep. Because it hit me. They weren't just broke. They were desperate. And desperate people do stupid things. A week later, I found out exactly how stupid. My office got broken into. They smashed a window, tore through the place, and trashed everything. Computers, files, even the coffee machine. Just pure destruction. And the only thing they stole? A locked cash box we kept petty cash in. Maybe $300 inside. My business partner, Darren, was furious. "We've got cameras, right?" he asked. Yeah, we did. And guess who was on the footage clear as day? Rick. Hood up, gloves on, but it was him. I'd know that slouch and limp anywhere. And worse, behind him, my mom. Standing there like a lookout. It felt like getting punched in the face. After everything, they came for me. And not just with words or guilt trips. They crossed a line. Darren wanted to press charges right away. "We have to," he said. "This is our business." And he was right. But part of me paused. Not out of pity. That was long dead. But because this wasn't just some petty revenge anymore. This wasn't about hurt feelings. This was war. And if I was going to end it, I wasn't just going to call the cops and be done. They wanted to make me miserable. They had no idea who they were messing with. I didn't press charges. Not yet. I told Darren I'd handle it. Truth was, I had a better idea. I wanted to see just how far they'd take it. Sometimes when people are drowning, they panic and pull you under with them. I wanted them to keep flailing. The more they messed up, the easier it would be to crush them for good. I didn't hear from them for a while after the break-in. Not a word. But that just meant they were up to something. You don't go from breaking into someone's business to suddenly finding inner peace. And I was right. 2 weeks later, I got a call from my bank. Someone tried to open a business account under my company's name. Same address. Same tax ID. Same everything. But it wasn't me. They'd used fake paperwork. Forged signatures. The lady at the bank said the guy seemed nervous and sweaty. Which, yeah, sounds exactly like Rick when he's up to no good. They were trying to clone my business. Probably thought they could steal clients, skim money, or at least cause enough confusion to make people doubt me. It was dumb. So dumb. But the part that really got me? They listed my mom as the account manager. She signed the paperwork. I went down to the bank myself to see the documents. When I saw her handwriting, I just stared at it for a long time. I kept thinking, how do you fall this far? How do you raise a kid, sit at his school plays, patch up his scraped knees, and then sign your name to steal from him? That's when the second twist hit. She'd used her old driver's license. And the address on it wasn't the last house they lost. It was my house. They'd listed my address on their fake account forms. I don't know if they were trying to drag me into it or make it look like I was involved, but either way, they dragged my name right into fraud. The bank flagged it immediately and killed the whole thing before it started, but now I had a real problem. It wasn't just some scratches on my truck or breathing into my phone at night. This was federal level stuff. And they were using my identity to do it. At that point, Darren was begging me to call the cops. My lawyer said the same. So, I started putting the wheels in motion. Reports filed. Evidence collected. Everything documented. But before I could even finish, I got one more surprise. A letter. Handwritten. Left in my mailbox. No stamp. From my mom. It said, "We didn't want it to come to this. You left us no choice. If you don't help us, we're going to tell people things about you. Real things. Things that could ruin you." That's exactly how she wrote it. No details. Just threats. Like I was supposed to panic and fold. Thing is, there's nothing they could say about me. I know that. But facts don't always matter. Rumors spread. People believe garbage if it sounds juicy enough. And it wasn't just about my name anymore. They wanted me to pay them to stay quiet. I sat there, holding that letter, thinking how it started with Rick laughing at me as I walked out the door. Thinking how my mom didn't even stand up. And now here they were, trying to blackmail me. And I knew right then, this wasn't going to end with just shutting the door in their faces. They wanted a war. Now, they were going to get it. I didn't rush. That letter from my mom stayed on my kitchen table for 3 days. Every morning, I'd read it again like, maybe the words would change. They never did. The last straw wasn't the threat itself. It was that she thought I'd fall for it. After everything, after all the years of silence, of treating me like nothing, she thought I'd finally crack just because she scribbled out a few sentences pretending she had dirt on me. I decided it was time to finish this. But not quietly. The next time I saw them was at a local diner. I picked the place on purpose. Small, crowded, and filled with people who grew up knowing all of us. People who'd watched Rick parade around like some hotshot for years. People who knew my mom as the woman who always bragged about how comfortable Rick kept her. I called them. Told them I was ready to talk. They showed up looking worn down and jumpy. Rick was scanning the room before they even sat down like he thought someone was going to cuff him on the spot. My mom smiled at me like we were out for Sunday breakfast. As soon as they slid into the booth, Rick started. "Look, we're sorry if things got a little out of hand. But you know how hard it's been. We're just trying to survive here." I didn't respond. I just took out the letter and laid it flat on the table. Their faces dropped. I said, "You're going to tell me exactly what you meant by this." Rick shifted in his seat, cleared his throat. "Look, man, nobody wants to drag anyone's name through the dirt. But well, you got the money. You could make all this go away. Help us out, and we won't have to say anything to anybody. Simple as that." And then my mom, God help her, actually nodded like it was some reasonable offer. I could feel every person in that diner watching us. Or maybe that was just in my head, but either way, I didn't care. I said, loud enough for the whole place to hear. "You mean the dirt you made up? The lies you're planning to spread because I wouldn't give you money?" Silence. Total silence. Rick's face flushed red. Hey, you don't need to go making a scene here." I laughed. Couldn't help it. "Oh, I think this scene has been a long time coming." And then I said exactly what I'd been holding in for years. "You kicked me out of my own home. You laughed when I left. You told me I'd come crawling back. But the only reason you're sitting here now is because you finally ran out of people to bleed dry. You used me, and now you're trying to ruin me because you can't stand that I made it without you." Rick tried to talk over me, raising his hands like I was the crazy one. "We're family," he said. And that's when my mom snapped. I never expected her to. Not once. But right there, in front of everyone, she blurted out, "We did what we had to do. You left us." The whole diner went quiet again. I leaned in. "No. You left me the second you picked him over me." That broke something in her. I saw it. The way her face fell, the way her shoulders slumped. But Rick was too far gone. He just muttered under his breath, "Ungrateful little punk," and pushed up from the table like he was done. He stormed out, and my mom just sat there, staring down at the table. I waited for her to get up, to follow him, to apologize, to say anything. She didn't. She whispered, barely loud enough to hear. "We were scared. We thought you'd help if you thought we had something over you." I said, "You thought wrong." Then I left her sitting there. Mark, my neighbor, happened to be there. He caught me on the way out. "That was something," he said. "Yeah, something," I replied. Words spread fast. By the end of the day, I'd heard from 3 people asking if I was okay. Asking if it was true what Rick and my mom were trying to do. It felt weird. Like I'd finally ripped off a bandage I'd been wearing for years. But under that bandage? Just scar tissue. No sadness. No guilt. Just this dull, empty space where they used to matter. Darren told me later, "You handled that better than I would have." I shrugged. Takes practice. They haven't tried to contact me again. From what I've heard, they left town not long after. Probably looking for someone else to leech off of. I think about my mom sometimes. Not Rick. Just her. I wonder if, in those quiet moments, she realizes what she threw away. If she wishes she'd stood up for me just once. But the truth is, I'll never know. And maybe I don't care anymore. Some people say blood is thicker than water. But I've learned some blood is poison. And I've finally stopped drinking it.